one of the things that surprised me the most, and the first thing I did was to look at the research out there on campus sexual assault, and just the prevalence of the problem really did surprise me a lot. And just gaining the background on campus sexual assault, what does it look like, what kind of research has been out there, why is it that college women don't report, was really, really important to have before I ever tried to find students to talk with. Really important to have, understanding why people don't report. And it wasn't, we didn't, look at this so much because we looked at institutional responses, but there were personal and cultural reasons, and there are personal and cultural reasons why people don't report that I think are unique to the college setting. And understanding that is really important, because you're going to want people, you're going to face it when you first interview people. You're going to face, the blame, the self-blame, the humiliation. If they experience some real peer pressure and backlash when they came forward, you're gonna hear that when you first interview them, a reluctance to tell you everything, because when they told their friends, they were laughed at, or they were told to keep quiet. I don't think this is a subject matter you just jump into, and you need to be prepared for the toll that this kind of reporting could take on you. Personally, I was pretty surprised by how much of a toll it took, and to know that that could happen and there could be no punishment was really, shocking to me. I mean, these stories, these stories are pretty horrifying stories from the victim's point of view, but being able to step back and to acknowledge that administrators, being able to look at this through their eyes, I think is really important. And being able to if accused student, even if accused student found responsible, is willing to talk with you, being willing to listen to what they have to say is really important as well. So we tried very hard to talk with them as much as possible, and to really hear their side of the story. I guess my biggest advice is the capacity to listen and to empathize is really, really important, and to prepare yourself for unexpected emotional fallout. I think is really, really important. Well, I mean, the biggest challenge is to find these cases. And to do that, requires a constant ethical debate. How do you approach a student who has been a victim? And, what do you need to explain to this person if you'd really like to tell their story for an investigative journalism piece? And we, organized our project around themes, narrative themes that we found, and we picked cases that we thought best illustrated these themes. And we went to the students and said, we think your case illustrates this based on our research and our reporting so far, and we'd really like to tell it. But in order to do that, we need you to give us your documents. If you don't have them, we need help getting them. We need to go to school officials. We need to go to accused students. We're going to have to do this. And if you're not comfortable with what it would take for us to fully report your story, then we'd like to know that. Some students didn't understand why we had to go to, not to school officials, but to the accused student. They didn't understand that necessarily. And we had to really think about and articulate why, as journalists, it's important to get all sides of a story, to talk to everybody who's been involved in the case. We tried really hard to contact accused students whose cases were being featured, and to hear their views about the process. We wanted to know how they felt about the process. And some of them, quite honestly, you know, echoed what the victims said. So that was really interesting. So if somebody wasn't comfortable with us going to their alleged perpetrator, we didn't, you know, they didn't make the final cut. It was really important for us to have these conversations with them before we got into it. And I just think that that is not something that most journalists think about doing, especially, I mean, I was asked if I could show drafts. That was a huge ethical dilemma. You know, negotiating, you know, the process was an ethical challenge in and of itself.